Hey, Ray Martin here for Church of the Ascension Family Life. Do you remember your wedding vows? That was, with this ring I thee... No, that's not it. Was I take you to be my wife, and a few things, and then till death do us part. In case you missed our first episode on the Marriage Shield, I'll include a link down below so that you can go back and watch it, so that you can get an idea of, why it's important to keep a relationship together and what it takes to do so. Today we're going to focus on the first of the 3 F's in protecting your marriage, which is fidelity. Infidelity is the surest way to break down a marriage. According to a study published in the Journal of Marriage and Family, infidelity is the #1 cause of a marriage ending. It increases the likelihood of marital breakdown by 300%, or in other words, the probability is quadrupled. So when we talk about keeping a marriage together for life, fidelity is a priority because not being faithful is the biggest threat to a relationship. Now, we hear from the very start of creation that God made man and woman to be lifelong partners, and that's where it says in Genesis, the two become one flesh. So let's go back to the wedding itself and see what it is specifically that we say or do that supports God's plan for us and how we can keep it together. In The Choice Wine by Steve Bowman, the first step, they say, to divorce-proofing your marriage is to honor your wedding vows. And it's not surprising that many people don't actually remember the vows themselves. I mean, there is so much focus today on the party of the reception that much of the wedding ceremony is just quickly forgotten. But to refresh your memory, here's what we say. We say, I take you to be my lawful husband or wife, for better or for worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. If you go back to our first installment of this series, we discussed the marriage premium findings that Bowman shared, which are that married people are happier, healthier, and wealthier than average. And that's similar to what we promise. When we say for better or for worse, that speaks to our happiness. For richer and poorer is obviously tied to our wealth. And in sickness and in health refers to our physical wellness. So we promise in our vows that regardless of our happiness, our financial status, or our health, that we will be faithful to this union that is joined together during the sacrament of our marriage. In addition to our vows, we answered these 3 questions of consent. Do you come here freely without reservation to give yourselves to each other in marriage? Will you love and honor each other as husband and wife all the days of your life? Are you prepared to accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and His church? It's no surprise that one of these questions has to do with honor. The first is simply asking if there has been any coercion or if you're in a state to give yourself freely to your spouse. The third question regarding children, we could have its own video or topic for discussion, because fertility and being open to children in various forms is a really challenging topic in our culture. But when it comes to honor, being faithful to your vows is pretty obvious. But if you go back to the wisdom of Riley Leggett that was shared in The Choice Wine, who said that you should eat dinner with your family every night and sit with them every Sunday at church, then it's pretty easy to see how difficult it would be to not honor your spouse by spending that intentional time with them and being in a culture with your church community that supports marriage and family. So let's close with a few things that Jesus said that are found in Scripture on fidelity. He preached to a crowd known as the Sermon on the Mount. It's found in Matthew chapter 5. And during that sermon, he said, "You have heard it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." So leave it to Christ to raise the bar on the definition of cheating. He also went in to dig in his heels regarding divorce. He says, "But I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, unless the marriage is unlawful, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery." So later on in his ministry, there was church leaders known as Pharisees that were always trying to trick him, and they questioned him about the Jewish rules on divorce. And he responded, "Have you not read that from the beginning the Creator made them male and female? And said, 'For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh.' So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, no human being must separate." And that should be very familiar readings that you hear during a wedding. And then finally, back at the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus commented on keeping your word. And I think this just really sums up all that really needs to be said on fidelity. And this is found in Matthew chapter 5:37. He says, "Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Anything more is from the evil one." If protecting your marriage is important to you in order to honor this union that God has joined together, then fidelity is the most important thing that you can do, and that's why it's the first F of the marriage shield. We'll see you next time.